guys, Mike here. So still in the tropical storm, so still in my office here. But boy, what a overnight period we had, and what a day we had. Because obviously stocks went, see you later, and now really what you're feeling, and we'll go through a little bit of this is rate impacts. You can see right here, it is like the iceberg, right? Or now all of a sudden you're seeing the rate impacts that we haven't seen. You're starting to see them show up. Before I even get into that, though, why we went down so big overnight in the last 3 days, all that fun stuff. But really, last night was. Did you guys have problems getting on these major platforms? Because I know a lot of the members did. For me, it didn't even matter. My power went out at 8:30 because of this tropical storm, so I wasn't able to partake in anything anyway. So I would have been upset. So I don't know if I could even get on or not because I had no internet or nothing going on here. But just wondering, and do you really believe in the comments that was a coincidence? Right? And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about if you didn't see it. 'Cause you had some of the biggest moves you ever see in a short amount of time. Okay? Now, let me just tell you what I told members. Bottom line, what happened overnight and what's been happening, we know about. I've already showed you a lot of this stuff, and it just compounded, right? So, Japan stock market went to hell in a handbasket, right? I mean, 7% in one drop. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And South Korea dropped 4%. Warren Buffett, of course, sold half his stock in Apple. That freaked everybody out. He continues to sell and pile up cash. Japan stock market, worst two-day drop in history, or since 1987. NASDAQ in correction, which means it's down more than 10%. S&P got very close to correction. I will show you that, and I'll show you why they didn't let it go into correction. Volatility VIX index actually spiked 150%. I think it got to 60 today, if I'm not mistaken. Mag 7 stocks wiped out $1 trillion. Oof, my goodness, in market cap. Bitcoin having its worst week since the FTX bankruptcy. U.S. in recession, according to the SOM rule. We talked about that yesterday, but again, I'll show you some more data which fights back on that. And then I told you yesterday, the market expects the Fed to cut at least 75 basis points, but they also expect an emergency Fed meeting, which, who knows? We'll see. I'm not going to try to predict them or anything. But when you look at what's going on here, I want to talk about this carry trade, or when we talked about the Bank of Japan. Remember I told you 7 things going on last week, and that was one of them. Well, I'm going to read this post right here. I thought it was a great post to make sense of what is happening so everybody can understand this, because I like things broken down like I'm a kindergarten, okay? So investors borrowed the Japanese yen. So as I told you, Bank of Japan is raising rates, right, which hadn't happened in forever. And so what happened was people borrowed the Japanese yen with low interest rates and reinvested the proceeds in higher yielding assets elsewhere. But now the Bank of Japan is increasing rates, which we talked about, and the Fed's supposed to be cutting. So the trade is unwinding, and it's a big, big trade. Maybe one of the biggest we've ever seen unwind like this. And so what is happening is, with this unwinding, it's causing losses. Losses require sales to meet margin calls. Sales result in more losses, resulting in more sales to meet more margin calls. Unwinding a large trade like this creates a negative feedback loop, as you can see globally. And of course, is it the biggest margin call? I don't know, but I can tell you this much. If you feel bad here in America and looking at your long-term portfolio right now, as much as it's been down in the last 3 days, imagine being a Japanese citizen looking at their portfolio. I mean, in a short amount of time, this literally wiped out all their 2024 gains and almost an entire year worth of gains to see this trade unwind like this. I mean, that's got to be sickening to you. It kind of reminds me of when we were here in 2008 watching your long-term portfolio just absolutely tank when the bank started going under. And so, and of course here, what's it caused? Spread and yields, right? They spiked this morning again. So it'd be the 3rd straight day. But what happened? This time, instead of going up, all of a sudden you saw spreads come back in, right? Now I'm going to show you that, or what happened in just a minute. Then all of a sudden, well, look, the yield curve uninverts the 10-2 year for about a millisecond. What happened there? Then, of course, here it is. Now they got an 86% chance in September of a 50 basis point cut. Of course, it's still 100% they're going to cut something, which most likely they will, right? But of course, all of a sudden, market opens. Even before market open, you saw stocks just absolutely ballooning. I mean, I'm talking about moves you rarely see, but I told you yesterday, you will see moves like this, right? And it could continue. We'll talk about that. But I want you to go roll through a bunch of these really quickly. CrowdStrike, look at this thing. Up 13% in a matter of an hour and a half, actually shorter than that. Then you go over to Mara, up 17% in 27 minutes. You roll over here to AMD, up 12% in an hour and a half. And again, I'm going to go into some of these charts in more detail, and you'll see exactly why some of these pop so hard, so fast. Apple now, up 7.5% in 30 minutes. Second largest weighted stock in the freaking stock market. Tesla up 10% in 30 minutes, folks. Okay, some of these start at 8:30, some start at 9:30. Nvidia NVIDIA now up 13% in 30 minutes. Like, these are mega caps you're talking about here, moving in 30 minutes now. Now, of course, what happened and allowed this to continue all day until around 2:30 was this right here. Remember, it's supposed to be in recession, but then you got U.S. services data coming out, right? And it rebounds. You got employment at the bottom, new orders, the purchase management index at the top. That is not below 50. Below 50 is contraction, okay? You see a pop in new orders, you see a pop in employment rate, but when you look at it overall, is it declining from 2021? Abso-freaking-lutely. Okay, you can look to the left and look where we're at now. Okay, now manufacturing has been in contraction for the same time frame. Manufacturing has just been a mess. Ask anybody that works in it, read the comments. They'll tell you right now. That is in a recession. That's been in a recession. Okay, but we're a 70% services economy. Okay, so that's still holding up. Now, looking at the index real quick, the SPX. Okay, you can see it goes down. They didn't allow it to get below 10%. But look, this is a process. Whether this is going to continue on, or we're over, moving back up, who knows? But when you look at it, you can see when it breaks the moving average, you get a retest. We have not retested that 100 yet. All right, we got a big rejection off the 50. And guess what? We're only like 2.5% above the 200 moving average. I'm sorry, 3.5% where we're at now. When we started this morning, we were 2%. And I wish it would just drop to the 200, but it's never that easy, right? I wish it would, because that would be a big place to bounce. But, and again, we'll get into that as we go through the video. You can see right here on the SPY, which some people say, can you please talk about the SPY instead of the SPX, because that's maybe what you trade or what you're buying, of course. And so you can see they got down to 9.62%. And there's a big reason. The market, look, it's not a coincidence. They did not allow this to go below 10%. Okay, and the reason why, it's a huge psychological thing, right? Because it puts you in correction. But understand, that's the market's S&P. The Qs aren't the market. But when you look, just look what they did with the very similar to the Qs. The Qs, when it went down, it went to 9.39, right? And they were holding it up. And it was bouncing, 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 bouncing. But look what happened. When that thing broke 10%, it was a waterfall down, all right? And that's exactly what happened to the S&P. If they allow that thing to get below 10%, because it's a psychological thing, it will trigger, these algos will start triggering again, and you'll see a waterfall, all right? And they don't want that, okay? That's the biggest. Look at that. That's 9.35. It went down 7.35 in 2 days. That's what I'm talking about. It's a huge psychological thing, and got to do with the algos. So you do not want to see the S&P drop, especially closing below 10%. That is not what you want to see, okay? Now, Google, just in case, real quick, this came out probably right before I started recording this a few hours ago. You notice it dropped about 3% in 15 minutes, right around 2:30ish. What happened? They lost the antitrust case. Now they will appeal, but this is a big one, because literally in the ruling, the court even said they have been a monopoly. They're trying to stay a monopoly. And mind you, I mean, they've made $175 billion in revenue just on the search advertising business in 2023. And again, I always say, what's a monopoly? And well, the court is basically saying this, and they violated the Sherman Act. Feel free to read all that fun stuff. So, of course, that was bad, but they will appeal. Now, AMD, probably one of the best bounces of the day. Why? Remember, confluence. If you never hear anything else from me, confluence. What do we talk about? When I talk about these every day when I go through these charts. As you're sitting here, you got a trend line. You got an area of interest that goes way back. Okay? You got 0.79 fib level. Okay, this goes back to 2021 right here, or you've either had sellers step in or buyers, right? And buyers have stepped in multiple times this level. And then you're setting at that 0.79 fib, so, pretty dang good. A lot of confluence, a lot of reason to bounce. And that's why this one bounced before any of the rest of them. It was green before any of the rest of the big boys were green, okay, the ones we know about. But let's be real. What are you setting up here? What's market structure like? It's in a downtrend. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Okay, so it has to get back up, start building market structure out. Okay, NVIDIA. What are you seeing here? Looks like an inverse head and shoulders to me. I mean, a lot of gaps going on here. Don't mean it has to play out. But if we're coming back up, look and see if we feel a right shoulder, get above that trend line, and start heading higher. If this is what this is going to be, if this is going to start turning into a rally, or dead cat bounce, whatever you want to call it. That's what until proven innocent, everything's guilty right now. But looking at NVIDIA, 200 is right there. It'll move, of course. Right now it's around 80, 81 bucks. So continue to move up if NVIDIA moves up, of course, but it moves really slow. And you see now it broke the 100 and it's 50 so far. Okay, so watch out for NVIDIA. If it continues to move, maybe the inverse head and shoulders does play out. If it comes down, I've showed you where the 200 is at. But buyers stepped in huge today. Now SMH, we've looked at this one before. Broke the 50. broke the 100, obviously try to get back above it, didn't happen, bounced right at the 200, and what? We have confluence here, right? Here's that shade area I've had drawn on this thing, it seems like forever, but this is an area that's consolidated, bounced before, okay? Buyers have been stepping in and stuff. They stepped in today, all right? If you start pulling your fibs down, I don't care where you pull it from, how far you go down, you're going to hit a major fib level, whether it's the golden pocket, 0.79, 0.50, all that fun stuff. That's what it is, and that's why this had a big bounce, okay? So that's just where we're at now. And so you get so overextended, so sold down, you're going to get bounces. And another thing, probably what happened this morning, and make sure you hear me when I say this, I bet you money there was a whole boatload of short covering. I will bet you money, I'll say it again in this video, make sure people hear me who like to fast forward through the videos, but I'll bet you a whole lot of short covering, which means they were buying back the stock, getting out of their shorts. Remember I told you, the stock market, they start shorting it so much that they want to cover, right? And try to ride it back up and try to pick a better spot to short back down. That's what happens. That's what dead cat bounces are. They short cover, then everybody else fumbles in, then they start shorting again, and then here it drops again. That's what we're going to find out. Again, I'm showing you, you're just seeing major moving averages either being bounced off of, but a lot of major moving averages and, areas being broken. Okay, so a lot of these stocks, you see Tesla, right? Ended up coming right below the 100. You can see it got right below its 0.79 fib right there. Bounced, but when we look in here, and again, you can put it anywhere you want to. That's the golden pocket. I don't care where you want to pull it from. Whatever bounce and move, when we start moving up, you want to pull it from. Doesn't really matter to me. But either way, it's still major levels, right? But what did it run into like a brick wall? That 200. We talked about the retest, right? So it came up, got slapped down like it stole something at that 200, and never went back up against it. Okay, so that's what we're looking for in Tesla, to get through the 200, and if it moves back down over the next couple of days, to hold the 100. That is key. Because obviously it's broken some pretty decent levels, trend line, and everything else like every other stock has, right? And when you look at this, easy stuff to look at is RSI, MACDs, right? Stochastics if you want to. But this is below 50 on the daily. That means bears are still in control. When it gets above 50, then we're cooking with Crisco, okay? Right here, we saw it consolidating. It stayed 50, 49 to 52 right there. Just hold, and then boom, bulls just took charge, and away it went, okay? So keep that in mind when you look at these stocks. Crowd, which we talked about, have one of the biggest, the biggest pop really, out of a big major stock, had the most confluence. And we talked about this one the other day, right? 0.79 fib, that trend line, this shaded area right here, oversold like crazy on the daily for sure. Not oversold on the weekly yet, and it's never been oversold on the weekly, by the way, but it's getting close to where it's been the last two times. But that is major confluence. And so everything you wanted to see, and again, that's the weekly right there. And so this is why you saw it have such a crazy bounce. Again, I don't care where you want to pull this from. All right. Doesn't matter if it's the golden pocket or it's 0.79. Either way, major fib level. And so it bounced. And we'll see if it can consolidate or continue to move. That's what you got to see. Are we going to have continuation out of this now that a lot of shorts have obviously covered and stuff? And the other thing, remember I showed you this one, I think it was Sunday's video, I believe. Look at that. The 100 and the 200 weekly moving average. Is that confluence for you? As I say, it has the most confluence. When you see confluence, you almost guarantee it's going to bounce. It's got a high percentage. Now, why I say this thing could have some legs? The inverse Jim Cramer thing, right? He says, I feel that this is done, but historically, a big one-day sell-off does not lead to a bottom. Should be more to come after this bounce. And obviously, many times he's put stuff out, and the opposite happens. So we'll see if this is not just a dead cat bounce, a relief rally, whatever you want to call it, okay? So certain things here I want to go over real quick. Do you see what's happening also in after hours? Watch this level right here. I do futures, so as I'm saying, watch 18,168 somewhere in there for a change of character for to get above that. The retails would be great because what they did, as soon as the market closed, actually right before it, at 357, they literally pushed this thing up, okay? 1.11% in 11 minutes. That's right, over a percent in 11 minutes, okay? So watch out for that. To show you what a crazy day it was, this is the VIX divided by the VIX 3-month average. Look at the spikes. I mean, the volatility was insane today. Look at this. The third highest on this little metric here. I mean, that right there is 2015, which there wasn't even a crash or anything, recession or nothing. That was 2018 crash. This was 2020 crash. And I'm like, that's just nuts to me. It eclipsed that one, right? It didn't eclipse 2008, but that's how crazy the volatility was today. And that's what lets you know it's global. It's not just here, okay? A lot of stuff unwinding. And for those asking me about TLT, you can see when they cut rates, that's when it really starts to go, okay? Especially the more they cut them, and especially the big cuts. And so if you're in TLT heavy, you want a recession. I hate to say that, but you do. I mean, you don't want to lose your job, but that's when you really get the pops, okay? You go back to '08 right here. You can see what I'm talking about right there, and we'll measure it out for you. I mean, as soon as they start cutting, boom, it goes up. And again, you're not going to get rich unless you own all of this, but you see the big spike? The big spike is when they try to take us down to zero. That's a 52% move. Okay, and so again, I know a lot of people are getting it now, DCA in if you want to, wait for it to pull back, whatever. But I just want to show that because people are asking about it. Now, when it comes to earnings, you got Uber, Celsius, Fubo, Caterpillar. Then you're going to have Supermicro, Rivian, Airbnb, Wynn, Devon, Reddit. As far as like economic news, you don't talk about anything tomorrow, guys. So really, it was the big news today. And then, of course, Wednesday, we'll have a 10-year bond auction, crude oil inventories, but nothing to worry about. So, hopefully, let me know how your day went. Again, I had no power until like 11:30. So, that was my day and everything. So appreciate this tropical storm and my terrible electric company we have in our area. So anyway, hope you guys got something out of it. Please hit the like, subscribe button, and will definitely bring a detailed video tomorrow. And for the members, I'll be doing a recession watch video with all those metrics. So to kind of keep things in perspective so people aren't panicking like crazy. So anyway, have a good one, guys.